My name is Tony Little. I work for Organic Centre Wales, and today we're looking at poultry feed. Now, organic poultry systems rely quite heavily on importing certain ingredients, particularly for the protein part of the ration. And there's two problems with that. The first is that it doesn't sit very well with organic standards that place very, very heavy emphasis on self-sufficiency in using the farm resources. And the second problem is that organic soya is getting more and more difficult to source, and that problem is going to get even greater as the organic standards reduce the amount of non-organic ingredients allowed in organic feed. So we're going to look at a number of things today. We're going to look at how crops like lupins and lucerne and a little bit how things like oilseed rape and sunflower can replace the soya part of the ration, but we're also going to look at how the range can contribute more to our poultry diets.
The main challenges are concerned with meeting the bird's protein requirements, more specifically the essential amino acids. There's a problem at the moment, even with 5% non-organic ingredients. We're moving towards a situation with zero non-organic, so that's going to make the problem even harder to solve. Well, first of all, we've got to find alternative ingredients to soya, because soya is becoming, organic soya is becoming increasingly scarce and hard to get. So we've got to look for homegrown, organic, high protein crops. The easiest ones to grow in this country are peas and beans, but unfortunately both of them are short of methionine, which is an important ingredient, and they both have anti-nutritive contents, mainly in their skin.
Is there a way around that?
There is, but it's not an easy way. If you cook the peas and beans, that gets rid of anti-nutritives. If we could find a way to remove the skin, that, because the anti-nutritives are concentrated in the skin, that would take most of them away. A more off-the-wall ingredient would be sunflowers. A lot of sunflower is included in UK organic poultry diets, but all of that is imported from either France or Eastern Europe. And I'd like to think that perhaps we could produce some sunflower in this country. It's going to pose some challenges, but challenges are problems to be solved. If you're buying your food in bags, that's probably costing you 40 or 50 pounds per tonne. If you can find a way of buying the food in bulk and then distributing it to birds in some ways, farmers are good at improvisation, you would be saving 50 pounds a tonne, which is a lot of money.
Oats are, well, we believe they're one of the better cereals if you look at the nutritional balance of oats. In the oats, they've got high oil content, which will give energy, and they've got a medium protein content, but the special bit is the actual balance of the proteins, that they've got the essential sulfur-containing amino acids, methionine and cysteine, and these are, what makes oats really ideally, or we believe ideally suited as a poultry feed. And we've been breeding naked oats at IBERS for the last 15 years, and we are starting to get varieties out which we believe meet the needs of the poultry industry. As part of the current quotes project, we're involved with Bernard Matthews, who are doing feeding trials, and their feeding trials back up these new protein and oil levels. So the next bit that we need to do now is get the oats more economically competitive with wheat. So we're looking to breed similar naked oats but with higher yield, which would mean that they would actually reduce the cost, which should mean they'll come into poultry feed in a much bigger way. Again, we've been looking at almost a niche market here. I mean, with the organic growers, what we're looking for tends to be taller strawed varieties that will compete more effectively to smother weeds, and also the actual straw yield is obviously useful for the farmers. We've looked at what we're calling a short tall or a tall dwarf variety, which is about 1.2 metres tall. And with that being stiffer strawed, you could actually apply more fertiliser to actually slightly increase the protein content. So that'd have a double effect. But there's not much in the way of organic fertiliser that can be added, although we have got Elm Farm Research Centre involved in the project, and they have been applying pelleted chicken manure to give us a high N and a low N. And we're using these in the feeding trials now to look at what the nutrient contents on the oats after these high N and low N nitrogen tests have been. So we'll be able to give you further details at the next meeting in June.
Okay, we're looking at growing and producing new germplasm of lupins. Lupins have in the past been looked at for poultry diets. However, there's major problems with lupins in poultry. One, low yielding. Two, they have this high level of alkaloids. Three, they have this non-starch polysaccharides. And these anti-nutritional factors affect growth rates and digestibility of the other nutrients in the diet. So in the project, we're looking at ways that we can reduce these anti-nutritional factors of new lupin varieties and also use dehulling processes to reduce the amounts of these non-starch polysaccharides, and then also incorporate an enzyme system from a fungus which will help to grade those NSPs so they can improve the use of lupins. Yeah, there's a potential of using lucerne and other forages by basically cutting and extracting it through basically pressing the juice and then steam distilling that juice. And what you do then, you produce a very high protein extract, which also has high levels of xanthophylls, which are very useful in terms of yolk colour if you're going to go into layers and layer production. So there is potential to look at protein levels in forages to be used in poultry diets.
Well, basically what we've been trying to do is steal ideas from other people and take the ideas that the game bird people have been using for many years and put crops in the ground which the birds can forage. The crops normally contain things like triticale, quinoa, millet, kale and buckwheat and sunflowers. And the trials work that we've done so far, the birds seem to be very keen, especially on the sunflower seed. And they will do almost anything to get the sunflower seed out of the seed heads, which sometimes can be quite a way up above them. Well, chickens have an amazing ability to balance their own ration and to take what they need. And the birds that are fed from the bag feed is designed for the optimum bird. Ranging gives other birds the ability to fill in the gaps, to find other resources where for minerals or for nutrients that they need, which they can't necessarily get from a bag. It also gives them access to insects. A lot of the cover crops are designed to attract insects as well as seed-bearing plants. And insects can be very high in various proteins, up to, for a caterpillar, 28%, for an ant, 13% proteins, full of all sorts of the essential amino acids that the birds need. Cover crops, most of the cover crops are quite robust. They do need a fairly neutral pH. They do need reasonable levels of potash and phosphate. They don't need incredible levels of nitrogen. They should do well on a grassland that has been turned into cultivated, and the cultivation is very simple. A couple of goes with a rotavator is normally enough to produce an adequate seed bed for the cover crops.
Okay, so we have 38 acres, along with another 12 acres that we rent about half a mile up the road. The main enterprise is the poultry laying hens. I have 5 200 bird sheds. We keep the birds for 2 years, so they have a pullet lay, they molt, and they come back and have a second laying year. We rear our own pullets from day olds, and every year, so there's a batch of sort of 500 to 800. Sometimes we rear some for other people. So we restock 2 or 3 sheds depending on the rotation every year, and 2 sheds then are the birds that that molt, that have molted in the second laying year. That's principally the homegrown grain, which will be naked oats and peas, or a cereal and pea mix. What we can't grow ourselves, we would buy in from Pembrokeshire organic growers, depending on what they have available. So I'll buy in about 20 tonnes of grain. We'll have our own homegrown grain, and then I use a bought-in protein balancer to mix up diets for the poultry from age sort of 8 weeks up to the end of lay, and also for the turkeys. We mix up in small batches, small sort of half ton, 1 ton batches, depending on what sort of we need, and we bag off from the mill and mix, and take feed out to sheds on quad bike and 25 kilo sacks. So we'll probably do a couple of mixes each week. It's usually about how it works out, 2 mixes each week. Advantages would be being able to utilise our own homegrown feed and locally Welsh grown grain. We also have the straw as well from our own homegrown, which is a big plus. We're not buying that in either. And being able to do small numbers, I suppose, not being reliant on bought-in feed, and being able to sort of mix up the diet as is required by the hens, depending on their stage of production. There is some some reduction in the economics in saving what I sort of say from bought-in purchase feed, but it's never very clear cut. Obviously, I make my biggest savings where there's an increase in the poultry feed costs, but occasionally if the poultry feed the layers ration perhaps has come down in price, I'm maybe not saving that much. Just depends really.